You're listening to the Experience of the Soul podcast channel, bringing you inspiration, teachings, and practices to support your spiritual journey. Welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, a weekly show helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. Today, episode 379, Resilience. And now, Experience of the Soul.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm also lovingly known as RCA, and I am so happy and delighted to be with you today, and so glad you're along the journey with us. I'm here today from it's kind of like my dining room, music room, living room that I'm sitting in, and here with my amazing producer, Mr. Sean Kilgore.
Thank you so much. Hello, friends. Wonderful to be here with you again today for episode 379 of the Experience of the Soul podcast.
Whoop, whoop,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're getting so close to 400.
I know. Should be a big party.
Yeah, it should be. We got to plan something. So today we are continuing with our 3-week series that we are calling the 3 R's of Spirit. Of course, this week we are into resilience, where we are going to draw strength for what we're living through today. And as I mentioned last week, next week we will wrap up the series with resonance, where we will tune in to the harmony of God's presence in our lives. But first, it's time for This Week in Spiritual History, that sacred space on our podcast where we pause to reflect on spiritual events in history that are still resonating with our hearts today. And first up, we start with September 22nd, 1784, when George Washington proclaimed the National Day of Thanksgiving. Now, while this is not really a religious holiday in the traditional church calendar, George Washington's 1784 proclamation of a day of Thanksgiving invites a spirit of collective gratitude. And so we see this as sort of a form of resilience that anchors us when we thank God, even in uncertain times.
Yes, beautiful. Beautiful.
September 23rd, 1529, Martin Luther published the Small Catechism, designed to teach foundational Christian doctrine through simple questions and answers. This was meant for families as a tool of spiritual formation that empowered everyday believers to claim and live their faith as a beautiful example of resilience in the life of the church.
There's that word again, Sean.
Yeah. I tried to tie all these into into the theme of the day. September 23rd, we did talk about this last week also, but it is the continuation of Elul. It is the sacred Jewish time of spiritual preparation. This ends tomorrow on Tuesday the 23rd. This is a time in the Jewish faith that is marked by introspection, repentance, and anticipating Rosh Hashanah. This time reminds us that resilience often begins with deep self-awareness and reconciliation.
All those R's in there. Yes,
I love it.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And then finally, just for fun, September 22nd, today is Be Kind to Animals Day. Yes, this week also includes Be Kind to Animals Day, reminding us that resilience includes gentleness and compassion for all of creation. A small kindness toward creatures, great or small, reflects deep spiritual harmony.
Oh, well, what an interesting day to mention that. My dogs are in the background. Roughhousing.
I thought I heard some ears shaking.
Yeah.
Hey, Bud.
Bud says hi to all of our people. And Zeus. I've got both dogs here today.
Zeus is the other dog?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So a reflection question for the week, my friends, is this week we celebrate resilience in many, many forms through liturgical innovation, communal gratitude, and compassionate care. So where is Spirit calling you to stand strong with mercy, truth, and quiet endurance this week?
So important, Sean. So important, and a great question. And you're absolutely right. It takes us right into our theme today.
Absolutely. So welcome officially, friends, episode 379 of the Experience of the Soul podcast. This is Resilience.
Resilience, my dear friends. Well, I wanted to follow up last week's show because last week was so important in remembering our sacred nature. And I do feel so much that, especially right now, and maybe it's really been, for a very long time, and it just seems ratcheted up recently, that so many things are vying for our attention, things that are unlike the presence of God. And so last week we spent a lot of time, and the theme was on remembrance, and it was about remembering our sacred nature. So if you missed that one, I want to encourage you to go back and listen. As a matter of fact, listen 2 or 3 times. I often, even though I am giving the shows and am the host, I often go back a couple times and listen, because I'm learning as the word comes through me and as I deepen my own process in relation to these concepts. And what we're seeking to do here is give you real spiritual ideas, real spiritual principles to take you deeper into your own journey, and certainly in your healing journey of your very own soul. We said last week that we are spirit, soul, and body, and I want to bring us back to that idea, because today I'm going to talk more about the soul. And this last week, again, was about the unchangeable aspect of spirit, and the soul is about your individual journey. And so many of us have had a journey that is psychological, that is healing of the mental and emotional. And I want to help us know how that works with our spiritual. And I also want to encourage you to know that you are, in fact, resilient. And Sean, I know that we had done this topic on a Monday night, and I love the dictionary definition of resilience. And if you could put that up, can you read that to us?
Sure. Resilient, of a person or animal able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. Or number 2, the second definition is of a substance or object able to recoil or spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed.
Yeah, I love that definition. And so many of our listeners, I know, have done very deep psychological and what we often call the mental and emotional work. It's the healing of the journey that has to do with family of origin, of personality. And I feel it's really important to differentiate those parts of us and talk about how that relates to our soul, and how the spirit of us can help inform some of this. We said last week that spirit lies in back of everything. And as we come into this life wave, as we're born as babies, I fully believe that we are choosing the family we're born in. I believe we're choosing the time that we come. I believe that we are choosing even which state, which country we are born in, and that we are born into this life wave to learn certain things. We are born into this very family and time to experience certain things, because in fact, our soul chose to come at this very time, at this very place, to these very people. And it is interesting over the years, and I have felt this myself at times. I have said, oh my gosh, why did I choose this, or why did this happen? And it's really hard from a human level to understand, especially if in our family of origin or in our childhood, there was some type of abuse or neglect, or, some way that we felt really pushed down and diminished. And I would say all of us to a degree have something. My point in bringing all of that up is to say that even if those things were present and our soul chose to do them, there must be a reason that we wanted to learn and grow through those things and get to the other side. And I want to encourage you to know that, in fact, you are resilient because you are on the other side. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you have survived the worst. And it means to me that there is healing to be done. And I'm sure a lot of healing has already happened. And it also means that you are capable of whatever healing to go the next level in your process of personal growth and spiritual transformation. I firmly believe, my friends, that you are powerful, that you have the strength of vision to go next steps, whether you are fearful or not, and whether you're questioning whether you can do this next step or not. And I feel that being resilient is really moving into our power in a different way. It's realizing we are stronger, that rather than having adversity overwhelm us, in fact, we it makes us stronger and able to withstand and then grow past whatever may have happened. And Sean, I know we had a great quote from the poet Audre Lorde. If you'd read that to us, that would be great. I love her idea about, she says something about when I dare to be powerful.
Yes. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid.
Oh, yes. Read it one more time, will you? That's a good one.
Absolutely. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. That is
Yes.
that is really, really
Yes.
poignant.
Yes. Yeah. To use, my strength and service of my vision. And so I think it's so important. I wanted to speak to this. We haven't done this in a while on the deeper psychological work, but I've been really inspired lately, quite frankly, by a couple of friends who are doing deep work. And I myself, in fact, am doing the deepest work I've probably ever done, which is really saying something. Over the last few weeks and months, I've been doing a deep dive into seeking to heal on a very deep level, issues that have been with me for a long time. And it's not that I haven't worked on them before, it's that a new level is emerging. And even though it is scary, even though it is, it requires a great deal of vulnerability, sometimes tears, sometimes silence, sometimes journaling, I know that the vision that I have for my life and the vision of who I want to be in the world cannot possibly be manifest if I am not willing to do this work. And so I'm really calling on my own soul and the resilience of my very own soul to know that I can and will go this next step. And I often talk about, music and how it informs my process. And there's a couple songs by a band I really like called Rising Appalachia. And I have a feeling we're going to have them on in the future. The last time we reached out, we just couldn't work out the time, but they really wanted to be on the show. But they have a couple of songs. One is called Stand Like an Oak, and another one is called Resilience. Yeah, Stand Like an Oak and Resilience. And when I'm getting frustrated or I'm feeling a little bit down about my journey, I put that on and I'm like, you know what? I can and will do this. I am going to move through these tough memories of the past and see if I can emerge on the other side as a little more whole and a little more in alignment with my sacred nature. What I know happens as we're growing up, it doesn't matter whether we were firstborn or lastborn, or maybe we were an only child. We all have things that happen when we're younger that form what we call the personality. The personality is how we walk through the world. In other words, we learn through our family. It's often called a family code or family system. We learn certain ways to get love. And we all experience what we call trauma. And the response to trauma, we often hear is fight, flight, or freeze. Well, there's fight, flight, freeze. There's also fawn. And, fight is when we're really in there. Flight is when we run. Freeze is when we sometimes we really don't know what to do and can't say or do anything. Fawn is where we try to convince everybody around us that we love them and everything's okay. So we all have what I'll call coping mechanisms or strategies, to to survive whatever dynamic we're in and, grow and move on in life. Well, what we learn as we age and as we develop in our own consciousness, as we, grow and mature in body, we talked about this recently, that we also are being called to grow and mature mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And what we discover is we try to have adult relationships based on childhood coping strategies. They don't work very well. And we've all been in those situations where we say and do things and we say, my gosh, where did that come from? Or we raise our voice to those we love, or we, say things that are less than kind. Maybe they're demeaning, maybe they're mean, maybe they're, ways that we don't usually relate. Well, when those things come up, those are a part of the wounded personality self, and they're coming up so that we can heal them. And what a lot of us do, again, we go to that old trauma response. We say, it's nothing wrong with me, it's all you. Or we say, I'm out of this relationship, I don't want to work on this. Or we just close down and freeze and move on as if nothing happened. And some of us try to convince the other person everything's okay. I'm saying all of this, friends, because none of those trauma responses are a healing response. And so I want to encourage you to get the support you might need to heal on the deepest level. The support you need might be a psychological, maybe it's to work with a therapist. It might be to work with me one-on-one as a spiritual counselor. It might be you have another minister, priest, or imam that you trust. And great. But I want to also encourage you to know that as we work with things mentally and emotionally, that there is also a spiritual aspect. And unfortunately, in our culture today, there is so much attention given to psychology. Psychology has almost become a religion for many people. And psychology is important, but some of the modern day psychology, I believe, really is crippling people. We're using our diagnoses as a way to stay stuck. We're using our diagnoses as a way to ask everybody else to step around our issues, rather than using what we learn in those important sessions to heal and grow. So I want to help us go into the difficult emotions, to go into those places that are tough, and see that not only can we survive it, but as we reface some of those things, that we get this new power around it, and that I want to encourage you to know that you can do it. That is the resilient piece. That's the piece of your soul. And so rather than, denying our story, what we're seeking to do is really live beyond our story. And I want to share with you, this is another quote Sean and I had from Brené Brown. And Brené Brown has written a lot on resilience, and it's very rare that I quote people that are not necessarily spiritually based, but her work, I've noticed over time, has become more spiritual. So Sean, will you read that one for us as well about our stories?
Yes. When we deny our stories and disengage from tough emotions, they don't go away. Instead, they own us. They define us. Our job is not to deny the story, but to defy the ending. To rise strong, recognize our story, and rumble with the truth until we get to a place where we think, yes, this is what happened.
Yes. I think it's so important what she says there about to recognize our story and rumble with the truth. That's kind of what it feels like. Yes. The image that always comes to mind about my own journey is being in a rock tumbler. Sean, I don't know. Did you guys ever have those growing up? We had a rock. Did you?
Yeah.
And where you put the rocks in it, there's this slurry stuff in there, and we'd go down to the creek, and collect these rocks, and then we'd come back and put it in the rock tumbler, and it'd go for weeks, like 6 weeks in a row or something like that. And then you take them out and they were pretty rocks. I mean, they were still rocks, but they were a lot less sharp. Yeah. And I feel like in our journey, that's what can happen when we really choose to heal. But we do have to really name, what happened. And so it's such a intimate and personal thing that I just want to encourage all of our listeners to know that, we're doing this work with you. We're not saying, oh yeah, go do the hard work and we're going to sit back and do nothing and just, pretend to be spiritually perfect. There is no spiritually perfect. What I know though, is that if we don't seek to heal, as Brené Brown says, the tougher pieces that we haven't worked are what own and run us. It's really our unenlightened places that come out sideways, where we say and do things we don't really mean to say and do, but the reason they come out is we haven't, discovered how those got formed. And so what I said about psychology earlier is, so often in psychology, we just keep repeating the same stories and the same traumas, and our therapists keep hearing those same stories and traumas, and we don't heal and transform through those traumas. And I think sometimes we do need a spiritual perspective along with the psychological to help us really make sense spiritually of how and why we experience these things, excuse me, and then how to transform through them and even use some of those wounds as a way to heal and grow and help others, along the journey. I think this is a very important aspect that psychology as a whole misses. It's not about reliving the trauma and only telling the trauma. That's just step one. That's just step one. The next step is, as we look at the trauma and see what happened, we could start to see a pattern. We could start to see a pattern in our own behaviors of reaction. We can see places where even maybe we were partially responsible for putting ourselves in certain positions. We can also see that maybe we're taking on responsibility that wasn't ours at all. Like if you're a child and you're abused, it's never the child's fault. But what often happens in cases of abuse, and this certainly happened with me, where we feel that what happened is our fault. Sometimes even the people around us tell us it is. In fact, we know that an adult is the one responsible. So being able to name what happened, being able to face the things from our past really can help us move into a brighter day today as we see that I survived this. I am a resilient soul, and then make a conscious choice. This is how I want to move forward on my journey. This is how I'm going to allow my journey to help me heal and grow. This is how I'm going to use and even heal these deeper aspects of my soul going forward. That we have choice when we begin to face what happened, rather than being owned and run by this unseen voice that is guiding these unconscious behaviors. Anyone who's heard me long in terms of my spiritual leadership has heard me say, if you're seeking to tell your story all the time, in other words, if you keep spinning a story about what happened, then you're probably adding energy, as we would say, fuel to the fire. You're probably re-traumatizing yourself, and you are living in the past. And spiritually, if we know we have God with us, if we know at our foundation is spirit, that we are sacred, then it will help us have the courage to look at what really happened, to see what our story is, to see what we keep telling. And that is going to be a key in how we heal moving forward. And rather than seeking to tell our story, we are going to seek to leap from our story into transformation, into peace, into living from joy, and from our wholeness as a spiritual soul. this is my goal for my own life. This is my goal for even the church I serve, for our members, and for the organization as a whole. So even though we're individual souls, everywhere we are, even each family has a soul. So as one of us heals, everyone around us has the benefit of that healing energy, and we all start to heal together. One of the things that inspires me a great deal and always has is that as a parent, my son, let me say it this way, as a parent, the work that I do will help my son even more than it helps me. And as much as I love him, I know that the work I've done psychologically has helped him grow and evolve in a way that I had to work very hard to grow and evolve. And now he'll have his own lessons to learn, and he does, but he will have a different base of psychological, emotional, and mental awareness to move from. And that gives me a great deal of peace, especially as he's going off to college, to know that he's in a much better place than I was when I was that age in preparing for college. I didn't know things about emotional intelligence. I didn't have necessarily a awareness of how my childhood had caused certain issues. I was naive in so many ways. And I feel that he has a much better start because of my willingness to look at my own areas of healing. Having said that, friends, I wonder if there's someone in your life that will benefit as you seek to do this deeper work and as you seek to trust that as you look at what happened, that you can know that you've experienced the worst and that you are resilient enough, to move this next step in your mental, emotional, and spiritual healing. My hope for you is that you will get the support that you need, as well as support your own journey through your spiritual practices. Last week we talked about the deep breath. We said, take 3 deep breaths. If that's all you can do, if you don't have time to meditate, you always have time for 3 deep breaths. If you have time for 3, next time, try to take 10 deep breaths. But find a way to connect with spirit. Find a way to sing a spiritual song or somehow get your mind, refocus on spirit. You may need, I'm going to talk about today, you may need a prayer life where every single day you're talking with God, as well as listening in the deep breathing, that you may need to talk to God and give God your pain, and to give God your concern, your worry and anxiety, and allow God to fill you up in those deep breaths with goodness and wholeness and peace. And finally, my friends, you may need psychological or emotional support, knowing there is nothing less than about that. But as a matter of fact, it shows your strength and resilience that as you are seeking to heal, as you're seeking to know God in the deepest way, as you're seeking to heal, that the whole universe supports this, and that this emotional and psychological work will be a fodder for your spiritual growth and will bless not only your own life, but all those who come after you on the journey. So my hope for you, my friends, is that you will believe in yourself enough to know that you can and will heal, and that you trust your process enough to know that as you move forward on the journey, the right support will be made available to you. My hope is that you will love yourself enough to get the right support to go this next step on your journey. I can tell you that I am going the next step. I am resilient. I am worthy. I am learning and growing every day. And I am trusting my process. And this is what I hope for you as well. you will surround yourself with people that see your goodness, your wholeness, and your light, that you will surround yourself with people that lift you up and support next steps, and that you will love yourself enough to get the right support that you need. Pray on it and let God guide you. It might be psychological. It might be emotional and spiritual. It might be myself that could support you in spiritual counseling. I have some people, that call and they'll do one session a month. I have some that do twice a month. I have some that do every week. And what I know is that Spirit will guide us. And if we're brought together, that healing is going to happen for you. And I will be honored to support you at whatever level I can on your spiritual journey as you grow and evolve. So, my friends, know you are resilient. Know that even if you have experienced struggle, that the worst is over, and that as you choose to heal, as you choose to grow, that your soul is so resilient, and you have so much power and energy, and the very Spirit of God that lives within you is going to support you and guide you. So I'm going to encourage you this week, do your breathing, sing a song to get back on track, surround yourself with good people, pray on it, pray about next steps. Is it a spiritual counselor? Is it a therapist? Is it healing energy? What are your next steps to heal and grow? And remember that you are resilient, my friend. You are resilient, and you can do this. So I thank you for joining me as always today. I hope you have enjoyed the show. I love talking about these things. I'm honored to share some of my journey with you, and very honored when you share with me. We're also grateful to receive your financial support because this keeps us on the air, my friends. And I look forward to seeing you very soon. Blessings on the journey.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. This podcast is made possible because of listeners and viewers just like you. If you would like to support the podcast with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head on over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Experience of the Soul podcast is copyright 2025 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved, and is produced by Sean Kilgore. A production of the SoulWorks Group, Incorporated. Thanks for joining us on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Every Monday, you'll hear the weekly podcast, and on Wednesday evenings, the Sunday message and meditation from Unity of Daytona Beach, with more meditations and affirmations throughout the week to inspire your journey.